Welcome to the D-VELO-P Cycling Training Podcast, where we untangle the complexities of peak performance in cycling. My name is Fredrik Eriksson, and together with my partner in crime, Erik Åkesson, we are the dorky coaching duo who will be your hosts. Hello and a warm welcome to a brand new episode of the D-VELO-P Cycling Training Podcast. My name is Fredrik.
And I'm Erik, and this week we're going to talk about a study, and actually a pretty new study. It was published in May this year, and it is a hot topic now as well because we're in the middle of the Tour de France. I believe it was stage 6 today, the Tourmalet stage, and this is a study about a Grand Tour named Role-Specific Performance Profiles of Professional Cyclists in a Grand Tour. And this study, as I said, was published a couple of months ago in May in European Journal of Sports Science by José Luis Sánchez-Jiménez and his colleagues from Spain.
Yeah, and they make an effort of quantifying something as messy as a Grand Tour, which I think has led to some bizarre conclusions in the study. So it's I think there are a lot of things that we will critique during today's episode, but hopefully also discuss some of the highlights of the study and talk about why it might be difficult to quantify something as messy as road racing in this way.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, it's very hard to quantify everything. And this was a pretty special Grand Tour as well. They did their data from the Vuelta a España 2020. And as we all know, there was a pandemic that year. So it was ridden in October instead of August as it usually does. So it was a pretty strange year racing and a pretty strange Grand Tour to collect data from as well, which can, of course, be something that plays a part in this data that they collect and publishes here.
Yeah, and saying that this is the role-specific performance profiles in Grand. Actually, they say in a Grand Tour.
Yeah.
It wasn't something they claim to be
in general, no.
For Grand Tours in general, because I mean, and I think that is actually what they've captured here. Maybe with the definition, maybe being critical here, it's this Grand Tour, but it's like we said, it's messy because how this plays out, of course, is how are the stages of that particular year's Grand, in this case, Vuelta a España, how is the race designed by the race organizer, which makes up an overall stage characteristics, which, of course, the team looks at and then decides on which type of riders they're going to bring and what kind of goals they have for the race. And then, on top of that, you have things like weather and wind and things like that could play a part. If it's like in this one, it was late in the autumn. It could have been cold. Usually, if you take the Tour de France, it can be extremely hot, and of course we have the wind problem with sometimes it's crosswinds. And then, of course, you have crashes like we saw in the Giro this year, a really nasty crash that took out some, I don't think it was one of the really high-profile GC riders, but a lot of super domestics that suffered from that crash, which probably played a big part how that race was ridden. And then, of course, you can have mechanicals and all these messy things that affect how the race is ridden, of course.
Exactly. But the objective of this study we're going to talk about today is to analyze the intra stage, and intra means within stage, so in a stage, external workload distribution across different stage types. And that is mountainous stages, semi-mountainous stages, and flat stages. and of course the cyclist roles, as in climbers, all-rounders, or flat specialists, and go by stage actually, and combining the mountain stages, semi-mountain stages, and flat stages into different categories. And we have some critique to give out, Fredrik.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think one of the great things that the ambition with this study is not just looking at the averages for the whole stage, but looking in within the stage and this doing it by in 10% increments and see how how these characteristics evolve during a stage. That's kind of, I think, their ambition, and that is a really good knowledge. I'm not sure they actually succeed, but that would be great knowledge to see how races kind of evolve. But I mean, to start with, I thought it was a little bit bizarre that they had abbreviations for flat, semi-mountain, and mountainous stages, and they had the abbreviations flat, FLAT for flat, no surprise, but then SMT for semi-mountains and MT for mountain stages. But I mean, we've had these classifications for over 25 years. I think it was I don't know if I pronounce his name right, Sabido Padilla from Spain classified these as flat, semi-mountain, which is then abbreviated CMO, and then high mountain, HIMO stages. So the type of stages, that you don't need new abbreviations. We can use the ones that have been in play for 25 years. And then the categorization of riders as climbers, all-rounders, and flat specialists. But I mean, okay, a flat specialist, are we talking about a time trialer? Are we talking about some kind of super domestique that is a roller or trucker? Or is it a sprinter? Or the sprinter's lead-out guy?
Exactly.
So we don't know. I think it's more accurate to talk about category in one way, and then roles as well, because these riders, I mean, some are protected GC riders, some is a protected sprinter, somebody else is a specific type of domestic, maybe a bodyguard or a road captain or something like that. So it's I think when it comes to the describing the riders, I think they're missing a lot of nuances by just saying climbers, all-rounders, and flat specialists, because there are a lot of nuance. I mean, you can dive down even deeper, like for a sprinter. Okay, is this a real power sprinter, or is this somebody who is really good at positioning themselves, or is it a pretty light sprinter that has a real acceleration? I mean, this is also very different types of riders who probably ride in very different ways and should think about how they ride a race.
Yeah, exactly. And in which category do you put riders like Tadej Pogacar or Remco Evenepoel in? Is Pogacar a mountainous rider or a semi-mountainous rider or a flat rider, because he's pretty good in flat as well? Or Philip Pagana, great time trialist, but he's pretty good at semi-mountains as well. So it's hard to
or the most extreme example, Wout van Aert in
Yeah.
the Tour a few years ago, winning a mountain stage, a time trial, and a bunch sprint.
Exactly. So where is Wout van Aert in this question? We don't really see. Anyways, the participants in this study, they were 36 male professional cyclists. No question there that they were male in the Vuelta a España. And there were 13 climbers, 13 all-rounders, and 10 flat specialists. And if we look at table 1 here, the body mass was pretty much the same, 64 for climbers, 67 for all-rounders and flat specialists. Height pretty much the same, 1 meter 80 centimeters for everybody. Final general classification was pretty good to see that there was in the climbers placed 38 plus minus 38. So that makes us believe that Primož Roglič is involved here, his numbers, because he won 2020.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the characteristics of the participants. And in the analysis here, they focused on 17 stages of the, not every stage. They excluded the time trial, and I believe some more because there were only 17 stages. 3 plus stages, 9 semi-mountainous stages, and 5 mountain stages. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, and they determined the kind of the power characteristics for the riders, their critical power, by looking at their best 3-minute, 6-minute, and 12-minute effort during this race, which very likely has skewed the critical power of some of the riders. I don't know how much that influences the overall analysis, but I'm guessing that a pure sprinter has not done a pure all-out 12-minute effort during a race like this. Maybe, but it's not for sure. Or any other type of rider could be missing an all-out effort for at least one of these durations, which will probably affect their critical power calculation.
Yeah, and here they don't really mention if they included the data from the ITTs, where some might do a all-out 12-minute effort, some might not, but they didn't include the ITT in as a stage in a whole. They only used the mass start. But here we see there are some warnings for me that they used within the race. It's good that it was within the race because it's relevant numbers, but as you said, I don't believe everybody did an all-out 12-minute power output during this tour.
Yeah, maybe not, but we don't know how that affected the results. And
No.
and guessing that for practical reasons that was their only option, because they couldn't do formal testing with all of these riders. So I think this was a reasonable way to work around that. They also looked at using this critical power. They did a zone to define what was low intensity, medium intensity, and high intensity work for these riders, which was up to 70% of critical power was low intensity, between 70 and 100% of critical power was medium intensity, and above critical power was high intensity riding. And they also used that kind of data to look at something that they call the power profile index, which I actually didn't really understand exactly what they were doing with, but it was a way of looking at how much low, medium, and high intensity riding the rider was doing for every 10% of the race, and looking at how that changed during the race.
Yeah, that was my interpretation too of that power profile index.
And when we come to the results, I think both you and me were scratching our heads a little bit, both looking at the big table that they had for the results. You dove a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, I did dive a little bit deeper because I read in the text first and I didn't really understand. So I looked at the table, and I still don't really understand because there might be some issues here with the data or explanations of the data, and some mismatches between what should be a mountainous stage, but it is categorized as a flat stage, or vice versa. For example, we have average speed for a mountainous stage is almost 50 kilometers per hour, while in a semi-mountainous is this 39.5 and a flat 38.9. So I think they just messed up the data there, and there was some more of these kinds of errors that I looked at, and I didn't really.
Which is a bit untypical for peer-reviewed research articles, and also from authors that are well-known names. At least the last name here, Manuel Mateo March, is somebody who has done a lot of research before. So we're not sure they made a mistake, but it kind of looks like that when we're looking at it, both of us.
Yeah, another example is how many kilojoules they burned through per kilometers on average. And here they say that on a mountainous stage, which is very, very demanding, they only burned 4.22 kilojoules per kilometers, while on a semi-mountain was 19.49, and on a flat 12.47. So here I believe everything's messed up here.
Yeah, it seems that they've reversed those, because it goes without saying that how much work that is done per kilometer has to be more when you're going uphill than going flat.
For sure. Only look at today's today's stage in Tour de France over the Tourmalet. They look pretty cooked. I don't believe that was 4 kgs per kilometers.
Absolutely not. And this goes on a little bit when we look at the results in the text as well, because it's almost not text. It's just a lot of numbers and comma marks,
E-values.
and things like that. So it's very difficult to get a grasp of what's actually going on for climbers and all-rounders and flat specialists. And that's on top of the kind of confusement of what's a flat specialist. Was it a TT expert or a sprinter? We still don't know.
Exactly. So if we look at something, now one will take an example. If we look at something like absolute time in the high intensity zone for climbers, it decreased by almost 10 seconds per 10% of the stage. So in the first 10% versus the second 10%, it decreased by almost 10 seconds the time in the high intensity zone. And that is, well, kind of because of fatigue, I would guess.
Yeah, I'm guessing that as well. And when we go into, I mean, how much time they spend in the different zones, they actually don't, because I mean, like we said before, the identification of distinct intra-stage performance profiles across roles and stages was kind of the ambition. But looking at figure 1, it's for the whole stage. So they have how much is spent in low, medium, and high intensity zones for climbers, all-rounders, and flat specialists in mountain, semi-mountain, and flat stages. And no big surprise there that mountain stages are a lot more time in high intensity and medium intensity, especially medium intensity zones, compared to, for example, flat stages, which is a lot of riding in low intensity with pretty much equal amounts of medium and high intensity. So the average, which is known since way back, is a lot. There's a lot more medium and high intensity in mountain stages, which is not surprising, of course. No. Anybody who is reading those type of races knows that it's usually the case.
But just look at the facial expressions on the riders during these stages.
Yeah, and I mean, this is, this is just super basic, but still, that we don't get into the nuances, because if you look at the climbers on mountain stages, I mean, is this a climber who is going for the GC, or is this a climber who's going for the stage win only, trying to do that in a mountain stage, or is it somebody who is a helper in the mountains, or is it somebody who's fighting for the mountain points jersey or something like that? all these things are of course dictates how you will be riding a stage like that. And if you're an all-rounder riding a mountain stage, well, you're most likely not riding it like a GC rider. You're probably going into some kind of early break, hoping that you will make it to the finish line before being caught by the GC riders. And if you're a flatlander, or especially sprinters or lead out riders or truckers, so to speak, those type of domestiques, I mean, they're just trying to either save as much energy as possible or trying to make the time cut for that stage. So it's very, I mean, those are the nuances that would be really interesting to see, not this basic averages.
But as we move on to figure 2 here, that tells us a little more exciting stuff, at least what I believe, because here they divide in the race into the 4 quartiles, Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. And during the high intensity zone, percent-wise, in the mountain stages, they're pretty much all out from the beginning, just to maybe do some breaks or just gain some fatigue in their opponent's legs. But in the second quartile, 25 to 50% of the race, it is a bit easier, and as well in the 50 to 75. But then the last 25%, the climbers, they are pretty much better than the other guys.
Who are just making it to the finish line.
Yeah, exactly.
Gruppetto.
The gruppetto, they're just trying to survive. While if we take flat stages, for example, here I believe it should look like kind of a U shape. It doesn't, because in the flat stages there usually is a morning breakaway, but here it looks like everybody is chilling the first 25% of the race or the stage, and then the intensity goes up the second 25%, and then goes down a bit in the third one, and then very high intensity the last 25% of the race or of the stage.
Yeah, and no surprises with the last part of the stage. But I was also I would also have expected a little bit higher in the first quartile, because there's probably not a lot of riders who want to be in the early break, but it can usually take an hour before that forms, and then everybody has to go fast and should be spending more time in high intensity zones during that hour or whatever. I mean, sometimes the break goes at kilometer 0, but sometimes there can be a fight for that break for a really long time. So that should have been, I think you should have seen an effect of from that in the first quartile, and that being much higher, or at least not much higher, but at least higher than the second and third quartile of the race. And of course, I mean, when we get to near the finish, then of course it's going to be a high intensity for a lot of people. But a little bit surprising that we didn't see that in the first quarter.
I think so too.
And then figure 3 was, I think, a pretty cool one and interesting, because they were actually looking at something that a lot of people have been talking about, but I've never seen it in scientific literature before, and that is how many.
Like this one.
Exactly, and that was how many air quotes matches the riders were spending for different stages. So that was really, and seeing that for the whole group and for different type of stages.
Yeah, so on mountain stages, on average here, climbers, all-rounders, and flat specialists burn about 1 match on the mountain stages, but the individual differences is from 0 to 8 on the all-rounders. So there's one poor bastard that has to do 8 efforts in the all-rounder group, and the flat specialist between 0 and 5-ish, and climbers also 0 to 5. While in the semi-mountainous, the climbers have to do a lot more, burn a lot more matches, up to 16, on average around 2.
And I think if I were to go back to the mountain stage and the all-rounders, I think that kind of highlights what we were talking about when we were looking at figure 1 with the averages. I mean, an all-rounder doing a mountain stage, they want to be in a break and trying to fight, and that's going to probably mean that you burn a lot of matches along the way, trying to stay away on a mountain stage as an all-rounder. So I think this was actually one of the biggest highlights of this article.
Yeah, I think so too. And just so you don't forget, the flat stages, the flat specialists burn on average more, and individual differences was more here as well than climbers. The all-rounders, they do a lot of work every stage.
Don't become an all-rounder, they said.
Exactly. And if we go to section B in this figure, we look at total time spent above critical power per stage. So on average, on a mountain stage, it looks the same for climbers, all-rounders, and flat specialists. Everybody spends about 12.5 minutes around their total time above critical power during the stage, while on the flat stage they are about half that, so around 6 minutes for everybody, which is no surprise.
No.
But it's cool to see these figures, to see the individual differences in the group and within group differences.
Yeah, and I think the shapes of these figures actually make more sense than a lot of the other statistics and stuff in this paper.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, and I would just mention that, I mean, figure 4 was if figure 2 was time in high intensity, the average power output for the different stages and types of the riders was in figure 4. And I mean, of course, they have a similar, not of course, but they have a similar shape. So the things we were talking about in figure 2 were could be surprising even in this one. And like to take an example from the flat stages, if there is a crosswind, which of course it can be, that's going to make the profile of a flat stage totally different than it is here. And if you take a semi-mountainous stage and you have it for a rider like was it yesterday or 2 days ago that Little Trek managed to win with Mads Pedersen, and Quinn Simmons was second. I mean, they got 3 riders in a break of 10 on a semi kind of mountainous stage. I mean, a masterpiece from their part. And the power profile for those riders were probably quite different from the averages here. So it really highlights how much it can deviate for an individual rider depending on how the stage kind of plays out.
Exactly. Should we go to the discussion part?
Absolutely. And there were some weird things that I found in the discussion part, which kind of makes me think even more about what they were thinking when they were categorizing, especially riders as flat specialists, what they were actually meaning there. And I'm thinking that in my view, there's a lot of overlap between time trialists and climbers or all-rounders. But I'm thinking that the flat specialists here were a lot of time trialists, which means that they probably totally excluded sprinters from this analysis in some way, because they conclude that, for example, they say that this aligns, flat specialists conversely exhibit a conservative profile in mountain and semi-mountain stages, with a lower initial performance and progressive declines in power metrics. Reasonable. This aligns with their specialization in sustained efforts, typically reserved for TT stages, not included here. So, in their world, they're looking at flat specialists as TT specialists, whereas I would say that a lot of the sprinters, their sustained efforts ain't their specialization. It's the more stochastic power profiles when the race is a little bit on-off, and you have to do some hard pedal strokes there, just and then doing a 1 minute all out there just to keep positioning, which is a totally different ball game than a more sustained effort. And they go on and say that this indicates that flat specialists should prioritize endurance and pacing in mass start stages, conserving energy for TTs where their strengths are maximized. Okay, they're totally missing the sprinters in this analysis, obviously. And pacing in mass start races, I don't know really what they mean. I mean, conserving energy, of course, staying in the bunch if you're conserving energy for a TT the day after or something like that. But otherwise, yeah, I don't really get the analysis here.
Maybe they just have to pace to make the time cut.
Yeah. In the flat stages.
In the flat stages, exactly.
Because time trialists are so bad at positioning, they're off the back of the peloton.
They want to ride alone.
Yeah, exactly. Another weird thing regarding climbers was that they wrote that in flat stages, climbers' late stage average speed gains show contributions beyond their traditional climbing domain. This versatility suggests that coaches should integrate flat stage scenarios into climbers' preparation, broadening their tactical impact. I mean, sure, I mean, a good climber can, of course, be useful in a flat stage, but I'm guessing that the average speed that the climbers have a equally high speed at the end of a flat stage is because they're in the bunch with the flat specialists. So, I mean, but they might not be the guys who are pushing the pace or being the best at positioning in that part of the race, but they're going to be in the bunch at least and have the same kind of average speed. So it's a weird kind of analysis from this data.
Yeah, because they don't really give examples of what kind of flat stages they are. But of course, guys like Jonas Vingegaard and Valentin Parapandra, Lenny Martinez, they have to train at crosswinds as well, just to know how to position in a flat stage and how to ride crosswinds. So that's, but they don't really give examples. So us, the readers, know what they're meaning. Just
no, exactly. And training for something just to be able to handle it good enough so it doesn't become a disadvantage is not the same as training for it to be your weapon, so to speak.
Yeah. And one interesting thing that I noticed was that the climbers decreasing average speed, they on average decreased to 2.7 kilometers per hour per 10% of the race. And of course, distance per 10% of the race, coupled with rising efficiency. And I don't really know what they mean with efficiency here. I don't believe they mean gross efficiency or delta efficiency. I do believe they mean lower kilojoules burned per kilometer, which makes sense because you do burn less kilojoules when you're going downhill than when you're going uphill, and you do have a lower average speed uphill. than downhill, and you do cover a lower distance uphill than downhill. So yeah.
And that is due to the best kept secret in cycling, a phenomenon called gravity, which pulls you down in the downhill.
Oh, that's why gravity, they call it gravity with enduro and downhill racing. I get it now.
Yeah. No, that was also a typical example of the kind of bizarre analysis in this paper, which is like, duh, of course you're going to be more efficient when you're going downhill.
Yeah, maybe
Or,
just a misuse of the word efficiency, because in scientific literature, in sports science, efficiency means something else. And we're going to think about efficiency like every other paper talk about efficiency, but not here.
But I mean, the reasoning is actually, I think, logical.
Yeah,
but
of course.
then you have to couple it with something like, and that highlights why it's so important to be a good descender, or something like work on your descending skills, for example, or your drafting skills on the flat sections in the valley between mountains in mountain stages. So like a climbing specialist actually doesn't only have to be good at climbing, they have to be a pretty good descender and think about how they use their energy in the flat sections in the valley before the next mountain as well.
Yeah. Do you have anything more you want to?
No, I think to summarize, I mean, this study kind of, in both an intentional and unintentional way, kind of highlights how extremely difficult road races are to quantify, because it's such a complex race format, and kind of quantifying the race demands is, I would say, virtually impossible. You can get some kind of good averages, but they change from day to day, from race to race. Even this, I mean, the same stage profile and the same riders, 2 different days could mean totally different demands, because things happen that shakes things up. So I mean, all the things with tactics and how you position yourself and roles within the team and everything. So it is messy, and I think it got even more messy with the kind of bizarre data and analysis in this paper.
Yeah, I agree. But it was nice to see that he used the data from a Grand Tour. That's not happened a lot, and from we believe Primoz Roglic as well. So that was pretty nice to see, and it results in a paper, but it was quite messy, I believe. But yeah, we can take take our pieces from it.
Absolutely, and I think we've said it before with papers that we haven't been particularly happy with. That, I mean, even knowledge that seems quite, I mean, of course it is like this, is still, if there isn't something done that actually has, with the scientific method, has documented it, then at least it brings that value to the table.
Exactly. I think that's it for this week's episode on the Grand Tour. Now we're in the middle of the Tour de France, so it's we
The
can't
end
get
of the
enough of
first
the Grand
week.
Tour. Yeah, end of the first week.
So we have 2 more
another-
weeks to enjoy.
When this is published, there will be, I believe, half the tour left. So
All
when you
right.
don't watch the tour, you can listen to us talk about another Grand Tour. Perfect.
All right.
Thank you for today, and thank you for listening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of the D-VELO-P Cycling Training Podcast. For more training tips and deeper dives into performance, you can follow us on Substack and check out our blog on our webpage as well. You can of course follow us on our social medias, Instagram and LinkedIn, and of course Facebook. And if you got any questions or ideas for future topics of the pod, leave a comment below this episode. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening, keep pushing forward, and we'll see you next time.